Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Around the Ropes YouTube exclusive. Now, guys, with us, if you watch our weekly show, we talk a lot about the independent scene, and we always appreciate when the guys and girls from the independent scene give us their time. And we are honored tonight to have somebody who is on the independent scene, but some would say he's a legend, so to speak. He's up in the Connecticut area, but you know him, you love him, the one, the only Bull Dredd. Bull, what's going on, man?
Hey, it's nice to be on. Great to finally meet you. And like we said earlier, I just love talking, being on podcasts, being interviewed, and exploring my life. My history in the business, and both our love for wrestling.
And believe me, you've had quite a storied career. And I want to, before we get into especially what you have coming up this weekend, because I know you have two very interesting shows coming up this weekend, which I definitely want to get to. I kind of want to go back a little bit, kind of start off with point A.
Okay.
What got you into pro wrestling? Was there a match, a moment that you sat there, you're like, okay, this is what I want to get. This is why I want to get into pro wrestling.
Well, growing up, I was always a fan of wrestling. I mean, I'm a first generation born Italian American. My parents are from Italy, and my fondest memories of sitting there with my dad watching wrestling, or playing with my wrestlers while he's watching wrestling. And I know I'm much older than you, but I had the fortunate of growing up Saturday morning wrestling with NWA, World Class, AWA, then WWF, and that was wrestling to me. And that's my love. Of course, I played basketball, I played baseball, and there was a point in time where I wanted to be a basketball player, but I was too fat and to be a basketball player. And I think I always wanted to be a wrestler. I always loved wrestling. My favorite wrestler was Flair, and I think there was during the Attitude Era where it really said to myself, this is what I need to do. I waited till I was 20. No, how old was I? I think I was 21, 22 at the time. This is what I want to do. And I called the WWE at the time, and I was like, was inquiring for wrestling schools. And I got this automated message, and they said they wouldn't accept anybody unless you have 5 years. I was like, there goes that. This was during the Austin era, and I was like, what I want to do. It wasn't until summer of 2000 where I drove by. I was going home from work, and I noticed I saw a wrestling school down in East Main in Waterbury, and I was way too nervous and embarrassed to walk in by myself. And there was a guy that I used to work with. I used to go to the gym, and Jason, my trainer, that was his school, was working out at the same gym, and he told me he has a school and stuff. So I would drive by, and I went to a show they had in Waterbury, and I met Jason, and I was like, I went in, and I was like, I want to learn how to be a wrestler. And I had the guy come with me to the school, and because like I said, I was too embarrassed and shy to go do it by myself. But that was January of 2001, and that was the first time I stepped in the ring, and when I walked into this wonderful business.
Now, obviously, you had said, growing up, you grew up in Italian American. Your first born, first generation. When you were growing up, was your father a wrestling fan?
Oh yeah. He used to take me to independent shows, around like Kennedy High School and Crosby, and back then, I mean, it wasn't like how it is now. Like back then, guys that were WWE contract, WWF. Like I could swear I saw Tony Atlas. I may have seen Bruno. I really remember. So like I said, he used to bring me to these high schools to see these shows. I mean, it was a different time then in the 80s.
Okay.
And fast forward, I've main evented and wrestled in those same high schools.
Well, the only reason why I ask that is I know, especially living in the Northeast, a lot of Italian Americans, especially growing up like 60s, 70s, and 80s, always would say, "Oh, Bruno was my guy." It was
Right.
it was always Bruno. So
Bruno,
it's kind of no. Go ahead.
I'll say Bruno was before my time. And, when my fondest memories of wrestling was, Flair, Hogan, Dusty. My favorite growing up, not saying I didn't like WWF, but I was more of an NWA guy, and that was because of the Horsemen.
Oh yeah, I hate.
There, that's what got me hooked.
I totally. I mean, yes, I've been lucky enough to watch them, especially back when it was the WWE Network. Before
Yeah,
now they're on Peacock, and I would be actually sitting in the same room I'm in now, and I was watching because I used to have a setup where I used to have two monitors,
right.
and I was doing something on my laptop, and on the desktop I had WWE Network open, and I was watching Dusty and Rick
Yeah,
because to me that's entertaining because that was wrestling.
that to me was just they hooked you in a different way, and it's kind of what's missing with the wrestling today, what you see on TV, especially how they did TV and taping, and they would, if there was a feud going on and time was running out on TV, they would do it spot on to where you had no choice, but you couldn't wait to tune in next week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, even AEW, like Rampage and Collision. If you think about it, it's pretty much a pay-per-view that's free.
Yeah, that's
It,
one way to put it.
yeah, it's just everything's already been done and everything's already on TV where there's really no build up sometimes,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's my perspective. And
Oh no, you're completely. I completely agree with you because I feel like, especially when you talk about like WWE and AEW, like for example, I know SmackDown's on live right now as we're recording this. I know for a fact by 9:57, the main event will be done, and they'll go right to commercial. They'll go right to the end screen.
right.
Where you go back in the day, and I'm talking like Attitude Era, even before that. I mean, I remember watching clips on YouTube with Gordon Sully, and all of a sudden you would have like a brawl breaking out, close out the show, and he would turn around and go, "Okay, we tune in next week to see what happens."
Yeah, you don't leave. There's no suspense anymore.
No, oh
Now,
no.
this some people do. I mean, there's not saying that there's no good storylines or etc. But it's nothing's left to where people are at the edge of their seats wondering what's going to happen.
No.
You know,
It's almost like the way I look at it is you almost expect that, okay, if you look at like we said with Raw or even with SmackDown, by the time you get to like that 3 minute left in the show, you know damn well they're wrapping everything up already.
right?
It's very rare that they go. I mean, yes, granted, we've seen it last couple of times when shows will go into do the overrun. I mean, we just saw it this past Wednesday with Dynamite when they were in Queens for a Grand Slam. So we see it a couple of times, but it's not that often. And I completely agree with you. There's no. It's not like, okay, we have to go into an overrun because we're building up something.
Right. I mean, some indies. What's the problem is? I feel now is, and with social media, and when I started, and I say this a lot now, and there's not many of us that are still around. Not just in New England, but I think more of like Connecticut, maybe New England also, if you want to include that,
Yeah.
where we got over without social media. Didn't have that exposure how it is now, and I mean, if I say something like that, I come across as being bitter. I mean, am I envious of what the business is today in some ways? Of course, because I didn't have those opportunities as I did, as a lot of the people have now, or the exposure. Rewind the clock 20 years, we didn't have social media and how hot wrestling is right now, and where you can see a clip of somebody, and next thing you know, like, oh my god, the word of mouth, and you see all these videos, and next thing you know, you see them on NXT or getting a tryout, or you see etc. Where we didn't have that, some of us, and I wasn't I wasn't willing to put myself out there 100%, like live the gimmick, the business, because I had a family and
Yeah.
I had priorities. So I had a decision to make. And once you start seeing the bad crap of the business, it wasn't something that I wanted to be a part of.
Believe me, as a fan, and I always I always mention this part, as a fan, I've been exposed much differently because obviously because of this podcast, because of my co-host Ryan Peterson, who's a ring announcer. So I've seen a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and especially like with new, because like a lot of shows that I go to are in New Jersey,
Right.
and I don't know how familiar you are with the New Jersey independent scene.
There's so many people that pop up. I think, isn't it Invictus out of New Jersey?
Yeah, unfortunately, they actually just stopped everything a couple nights ago.
Yeah, I saw something, and people come and go. That's the
Yeah,
business.
well, and I agree with you. You mentioned before about the social media thing. I completely agree with you because, in my perspective, I feel like, especially with social media now, you get, and I don't look at it more of the wrestlers that I kind of put this on. I put this more on the fans'
Right.
perspective, where the fans, because you have Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I know it's the X now, but to me it's still Twitter because you have Twitter, you have Facebook. Everybody thinks that, oh, I have a keyboard, I can put out something, but because nobody's going to actually call me out on it, I can say it. And I mean, I see it now when people post stuff on Facebook, and I'm in a lot of these wrestling groups, and oh, they start saying stuff, and I'm like, you're not in the industry. I don't even say I'm in the industry, and people have looked at me, they're like, they look at me as I'm the extended family of the industry.
Yeah. There's so much, pros and cons. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I haven't said anything about people that are like, dude, you're not in the business, so shut up. You know what I mean? I've come to the point now where like I can self-reflect and look back, and I've gotten myself involved in drama where I would run my mouth. I would get upset about something, but then I had to kind of look at myself. I'm like, what the fuck am I? What the hell have I done in this business? And at the time, I was only in the business, I don't know, 10, 12 years. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't done anything. And I've learned that to let people do what they want, because if they're not doing something wrong, they're going to fall anyway. They're going to let people fall on their own. You know what I mean? But I understand with stuff where I used to talk about stuff about the business where, like, if you're not doing this, why are you saying you're this? You know what I mean? Like, you're not training properly. Don't say you trained if you're not getting in the ring and stuff. There was a time, like I said, where I like I shouldn't have been talking like that. Like I was some type of veteran where I was on TV, etc. Like, but now I'm at the time of my life and the point of my career where I can look back and kind of look at somebody. I'm like, dude, you're doing this wrong. You need to be doing A and B before you need to get to Z. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
I
at the same time, I'm like, let people do whatever they want, because sometimes I say to myself, I think we all feel like, you feel like you have something to prove, you know, but sometimes things are just better left unsaid.
I completely, and somebody in your position who's been in this industry for over 20 years, I think if you have somebody who, if like, I'll put it this way, if I was somebody who was entering wrestling now, and let's say we were in the same training school
Right.
type of deal, and you said to me, okay, John, I saw your match, you should have done this, I would sit there and go, okay, but maybe also I'm different in this perspective. I would sit there and go, okay, Bull has a point. He's been doing this long enough. Like when I look at it with the podcast inside, because I've been doing podcasts now for 12 years.
Right.
If somebody turns around who's been doing like radio or podcast and says, oh, you did this, try this, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. There is somebody who's been in it longer than me. I'm in no position as somebody who's trying to still get my name, not even in podcasting, in the wrestling industry. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to listen.
Right.
And I kind of learned that especially recently, that a lot of time I don't remember who said it, but I heard the saying a while ago, you have two eyes and one mouth, talk less type of deal.
Right.
And
Well,
that to me is one thing I've learned.
yeah, you learn a lot by just being quiet and just listening. Sometimes just watching. We're human. I can admit to my faults, and sometimes I stop myself from, if I post something and something I thought about today, and the more you become at peace with yourself, the more you don't understand nonsense. And do you understand that?
I know I get that.
It's like you wondering why did he say that, or why did they do that? Why do they think like that? I wouldn't do that. I mean, do people think of me that way? So, like I said, when it comes to the business, I talk about, I feel like, let me back up. I feel now that I have a legacy that I'm working on. I know what I've done, because a lot of this stuff, a lot of my best memories, yeah, as a performer, I have many, but it's how you carry yourself outside of the business and what you bring to the ring is more important than anything you do in that ring.
Mhm.
Where, I've had fans come up to me and, for instance, uh, well, shit, I forgot his name. His name is Marcus. I worked with, I know you've heard of Northeast Wrestling, NEW, and I
Yeah.
spent a good part of my career there, a good decade, just over a decade. And my last match with Northeast Wrestling was March of 2019. So it was like going into my 11th year.
Mhm.
Uh, and, I've had a change of gimmicks. I was much bigger then, I was over 300 pounds. I was over 300 pounds for the majority of my career. I was a lot more intense, until I started doing the sexy beast gimmick. Anyway, that's the one thing that, you have to relate to fans. They need to feel A, your intensity, B, your emotions, and your character. It's not about the moves, etc. So I did a show in Newburgh, and I'm trying to remember who was on the show. I think the Bella Twins was on the show, Bobby Lashley, maybe Kevin Nash,
Mhm.
and myself. I think Lawler was there too. I think he gave me blood pressure pills because I had high blood pressure and I had to get my BP down.
Yeah.
I was I was in a five-way match, and you're gonna laugh. You're gonna be amazed at some of the names that were in this match.
Mhm.
Caleb Conley, does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Okay. Brian Anthony.
Yes.
Okay. Cedric Alexander, he's in
Yeah.
WWE.
Mhm.
And Adam Page.
Okay.
And myself. So five.
Mhm.
Now, I'm the biggest guy in the match. Okay. And once I got tagged in, I wiped out everybody. But I was the first guy eliminated. And I think Adam Page or Cedric hit me with a high crossbody. I have it on DVD. I was the
Okay.
first man eliminated. Now, I must have been in the ring maybe 2 minutes, not even. Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe a year or two later, I was talking to a fan. He was messaging me, and he said to me, "NEW in Newburgh was his first show. It was his first show for NEW he went to, and he had three highlights of that match that he remembered, of that night that he remembers. I think one of them was the Bella Twins or Nash or whatever. I don't remember.
Yeah.
The other one was me, because I left an impression on him because of my intensity, kind of like, and you just need to be remembered, So it's the little things like that people notice that you have to stand out. You know what I mean? And,
Mhm. No, I
and
completely I know I completely agree with what you're saying because from a fan's perspective, I think what you're trying to get at is the relatability factor.
right, it's believable.
Believability. Yeah, that's because I know with me, and I always tell the story. What got me back into pro wrestling was Daniel Bryan and his run he had going into WrestleMania 30.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I say that for one reason because you look at what he went through in that whole storyline when it was him against it was him rising up against the authority, trying to overcome the odds, and how that kind of why I'm saying that was kind of relatable to me was that's how my life has been. I've
Right.
always had to overcome the odds. I've always been told, oh, you don't have what it takes to get to that level. And whenever I do get to that level, I always just have that biggest grin on my face
You
saying, I proved you wrong.
right. And I totally understand it because I've had a lot of adversities in my life. You
Mhm.
know, days I still go through it. And I've learned that now at this point in my life that I have nobody to impress but except myself. And I don't have to answer to anybody except myself. I can take responsibility for my own faults. And no matter what I'm going through during any point of the day, from my anxiety's up, I have something going on, I'm busy at work, or I have something going on and I'm just kind of struggling, it's busy, I get inside my own head. We've all been through it, I'm sure you do it. I take a breath and I look for little signs. Sometimes I'll find a penny, or I'll see a sign, or like I see numerical angelic numbers, and I'll look at it and I'll just say to myself, everything's going to be okay. And that also comes with, like I said, having a mindset and a discipline where you got to give yourself something to look forward to. Let's just say you had a crappy day today and, you're struggling, for you. I mean, you're saying to yourself, okay, what do you do tonight? I got the podcast. So you're interviewing Bull Dredd. Your goal is to get at the end of the day that's what you have to look forward to. Now we're doing it right now, right? Look back at your day right now. Look back and you're like, what was I worried about?
That's the
Right?
one. No, I completely agree with you. And the one thing I've kind of learned is especially when we talk about the whole mental health thing, having the anxiety problems, I'm a, believe me, I'm the, you look up Webster dictionary, you see my face right next to having anxiety. I go through it daily. And the biggest thing I've learned, especially recently, is when you have, because like you just said, you kind of have to have those little things that you look forward to. And for me, the biggest thing for me, and I'll say it right now, is the friends that I have. The friends that I have who, if I text them and go, hey, I had a shitty day, the first comment I get is, what's wrong? Start talking.
Right.
So at least I know, okay, where I used to think for a while, okay, it was me against everybody type of deal. Now it's like I don't have that same mentality anymore. Now I have certain things kind of going in my direction because I put through the grind, I put through the effort. And sometimes it's, I think the way I'm trying to put it is this: life is not easy for anybody.
Nope.
You got, but the thing is, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, because believe me, folks, if you're watching this, life is going to knock you down. Trust me, I have been through it incredibly in the last probably 2 months. And it's not how many times you get knocked out, it's how many times you get up, brush yourself off, and keep going.
Right. For you have to, I've been depressed in my life, weight, uh, loneliness, and
Mhm.
I've been through it all. And um, it's when you kind of, I look back, I was like, what got me out of it? You start doing the things you got to do the things you like, and you got to do the things you love, and you have to continue doing that stuff. Continue doing the things you love, and because you give yourself something to look forward to. And you got to start becoming your own best friend. Where I understand, like, you want to text somebody, you got somebody to talk to. I've had a shitty day. There's going to come a time where you don't have anybody to talk to. So how do you get yourself out of it? I mean, like, you have to start, like you said, you fall back on the things you like to do, because you have to become your own best friend, even if you have to give yourself a little pep talk. You have to keep your mind and your body and your physical and your soul. You have to keep yourself busy,
Oh yeah.
because if you're concentrated on, okay, I'm going to put it to you this way. The only, like, you ever just stop and think, like, you're only tired when you're like, you're standing there and you're thinking about it. You
Mhm.
think, you know what I mean? Like, when you're continuing doing something, it's like time passes by fast. You're thinking about something, but you're keeping yourself busy. You're not thinking about it. You're only thinking about it when you're sitting there stopping to think about it. it, this just comes with, a lot of discipline and maturity, and kind of becoming self-aware of what triggers you, and kind of very self-awareness.
No, I completely okay. Like I'll put it this way, talking, you mentioned, you were dealing with, weight issues for a while. I'm in the same boat as well. I have been, and I'm going to say it, I'll say this right now. I have also been over 300 pounds most of my life.
Right.
It wasn't until probably the last, I would say 6 months, no, longer, actually, started December of last year. At my heaviest, I was 338.
Okay. Yeah, I've been there.
Right now, I'm down to 283.
That's good. That's good.
And a lot of that, and people have, and believe me, what I laugh with that, and that, that goes back to the whole thing you were saying about, what, some of the things you have to look forward to. For me, one of the things I look forward to is going to the gym.
I do the same thing.
Because it kind of keeps me going, because especially when I go to a lot of these independent shows and I'm seeing people who I haven't seen for a long period of time, and they kind of look at me, they're like, last time we saw you, you used to be a lot heavier. I go, yeah, that was me 6 months ago.
Yeah. I that's what I gave myself to look forward to. And I kind of, not saying that I'm any type of fitness instructor or anything like that. I've created my own routine where, well, first since 2018, I probably dropped down to my lowest. I was down to I'm type 2 diabetic. So, and that kind of jump started my weight loss.
Yeah.
And back then I was training, I was in the ring, I had training, 3 nights a week, and, wrestling on Friday and Saturdays. And I was constantly in the ring. But once the wrestling school closed, I lost that side, that part of my cardio. So I blew up again to about 289. I was still lifting. And what happens when you lift, you start eating more.
Yeah.
I had a change. And I started doing intermediate fasting. And I literally would fast 16 to 17 hours a day. And, keep myself hydrated, and, and keep up with lifting and stuff. But since 2018, I can never do a push-up. And so I started doing like 20, 30 push-ups a day, whatever.
Yeah.
So I used to do 6 sets of 100 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I stopped doing that because it started causing problems in my shoulders. So now I do 6 sets of 50 because I don't need to do so many. Sometimes every once in a while, depending how I feel. But now I incorporated a double sets of, I just start doing 20 squats right after. That's been the last few months. And like I said, I'm getting older now, so it's about keeping myself healthy in that aspect, physical, because I can't put that work in the ring anymore. But like to tell you is that you have to fall in love with that. And it's a mindset where you ever get to a point where you leave work, you get to the gym, you get to the parking lot, and you're like, I don't feel like going in. I could just go home right now. You ever do that?
Oh yeah, it's happened plenty of times. But then
And
it's
what happens?
funny.
Say to yourself.
Then I kind of have that moment in me where I go, I've gotten. This has just been my mentality. I've gotten this far already. Like I said, I'm down 55 pounds already. I'm probably even more. I haven't. I started a new job today doing landscaping, so I could be down more as we're talking. So with me, I kind of sit there a lot of times. I'll sit there and go, I've gotten this far. People are noticing. I'm in the physically, I'm probably in the best shape I've been in probably the last 10 years
Right.
or so.
It's motivating, right?
Oh, I mean, I'll put it this way. At my heaviest, and then, we'll get back into the wrestling stuff in a second here. I used to wear a size 44 pants. That was when I was at my heaviest. I went to Walmart probably about a month ago. And like I said, I've been losing weight. I was like, you know what? Let me try putting on a pair of 34 pants. I was just curious to see if I've gotten to that point yet.
Right.
I put it on. I did the whole, the squat test and everything, just to make sure, I don't squat and then all of a sudden rip. And I did it, and I was like, son of a gun. I can now fit into a size 30, and and I think that's what's also keeping me motivated is when I'm, putting, seeing these results, and then I can go put on a 4XL shirt and it looks like I'm wearing a dress.
Well, like I said, I've been through it. 3X. I was a size 52 pants. I don't wear my pants underneath my belly. I used to wear it above my waist, right on my belly. I mean, I gained a little bit of weight back. I'm probably up to like 265 now, and but I'm also very, lifting, and my routine hasn't changed. I snack a little bit more. I'm not really strict on my fasting as I
Yeah.
used to be, but I feel good. So it's motivating because people notice it, because we're always the last one to see the difference.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm actually gonna pull up a picture for you. Okay, here we go. Just so that you can see the change.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The picture on the left, the one where I'm looking like looks like I'm looking off,
Yeah.
that was from December of last year.
Oh, a big difference in a year.
Yeah. And that's probably my biggest motivation is when I sit there and I go, I used to look like that. I mean, believe me, I can go into a whole story of the stuff I used to do. And the fact that what kind of did it for me was the fact of I knew if I was keep going in that direction, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, diabetes runs in my family. It's taken, I've had family members die from it. And, I'm not, and I'm getting older, 50, only a couple of years away from me. And for me, honestly, and I don't mean this in any bad way. Sometimes I see other people, guys either younger than me or my age, that don't take care of themselves. And I look at that and I'm like, I was once like that. And I'm not saying like I look at them, I'm fat shaming them or anything like
Mhm.
that. I looked at them, I'm like, I don't want to be that way again. And like I said, I'm not, a
Oh, no.
fitness instructor or anything like that. It's
Oh,
we have to create the routine and the health and the lifestyle that we want for ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us.
exactly. And I think with me, and I always, and because I've had a crap ton of people come to me and they're like, okay, so what's your secret? What's your secret? What are you doing?
Same thing. I know.
And, and I'll sit there and go, honestly, the biggest thing I've learned is you have to have three things. You have to have three components when it's losing weight and maintaining it. You have to have will, determination, and the right support group.
Right. And discipline, self
Yeah.
discipline.
Oh yeah. Like I had one time, God, this probably goes back probably about a month ago. I got myself Taco Bell just because I was hungry and I was trying to drive and eat Taco Bell. It didn't turn out too well for me. Basically I hit a bump and half the taco ended up on my lap.
Yeah.
And I actually had a friend of mine who's a wrestler from upstate New York who's, works in the gym. He knows that I've been doing this whole weight loss thing. And he actually called me out on it. He goes, why the hell are you eating Taco Bell? He goes, I thought you were trying to lose weight. And I kind of sat there and I'm like, you know what? He has a point. Why am I doing this to myself? I'm not going to get, I mean, my end goal is to be down to 200 pounds. That's my goal.
Right.
Well, like
Well,
I said, right now I'm at 283. So I'm
don't
almost there.
one of the things too, also, it comes with discipline is not denying yourself.
Mhm.
You just gotta know when is enough, and when you're overdoing it, because it's easier to lose, it's easy to gain, it's harder to maintain. And it's just like just in life. I don't, like I said, I come from a different generation. Being raised differently. When I tell people, like I said, being Italian American, I grew up in a different world. Being from immigrant parents, I was very sheltered. People that half-ass their life, to go about their life in a half-ass way, go about their livelihood the same way. If you can understand that, they coincide with each other. You know what I mean? So the way you live your life is the way you go about your job. You know what I mean? So, and that's just discipline. And I'm not, and you get to a certain point, like you're at a certain point now where you're losing weight, you're at a good weight, and you're happy. So it's really hard for you to maintain that mental psyche to continue, because you're gonna hit a block. You're gonna hit a roadblock, where a hump where you're gonna feel like, I'm not losing weight anymore or anything. You can't look at it that way, because I've been there. You have to just continue and stay on that path, because once it's very easy. And that's what I mean about not denying. Start denying yourself. You go to Taco Bell once, okay? You just got to know when to stop. It's okay to have it. It's when you indulge in it and you start going backwards.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
believe me, that's the one thing I've learned, because growing, when I was at my head, and I'm talking like heaviest, I'd be the one who would go to fast food, and I would put down $30 worth of food and not even think twice about it.
Yeah, I don't even eat fast food anymore. But to get back to wrestling and
Yeah,
everything I talked about, and how do I turn it and bring it and relate it to the business and where I am now in my life and career, is I'm able to keep up with some of the younger generation now, and where I couldn't do this at my heaviest. And I kind of feel like what I bring to the table now, psychology wise, is I hopefully, like, what I'm trying to teach a lot of the guys is storyline. The why are you doing this? Just the basis of a match, psychology wise. The beginning, the middle, and how to finish. And I'm able to do that because I can't put the work in the ring anymore during the week training. That's the part I miss the most. Practice. People don't realize how much you do a lot more damage to your body training than you do in an actual match. But you also do a lot. You could do a lot more in the getting ready than you do in an 8-minute match. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure, like you probably let's how do you pertain this to podcasts? Sometimes we could talk about a lot more before you go on air than you do when you're actually on air. That's where the real conversations start. You know what I mean? Like, look
it's
at
happened.
so I'm able. That's why I'm loving what I'm doing right now, because A, I'm having fun. B, I still love performing. It's been pretty much almost half my life, and I was thinking about that today. How am I going to shut that off? You know, I
I
don't.
I no, I see where you're coming from, and especially, just want to go back to the thing you mentioned about storytelling. One thing on our weekly show, and I stress this constantly, is there are certain times where you see this more, I feel like, on the certain independent companies than in others. And I'm not trying to put down any independent company, but to me, as a fan, I'd rather have the storytelling aspect, because I'd rather have the emotional investment part of it.
Right. A lot of the independents now, and this is me shooting. I understand, what they're doing, but a lot of the promoters, they're how did I said to myself today, being a promoter right now in owning an independent company is this: if you're going to give somebody a playlist with all of what's popular in music today, you're going to lose a lot of fans. If you're not playing or giving every wrestling fan a little bit of everything, and especially in the independents and kind of like in my area,
Yeah.
I kind of feel as a vet that, like, you're not going to draw any old school wrestling fans if you're not utilizing the local vets. You know what I mean? Like, if you keep using the super indie guys of what's popular, everybody's using the same guys. But again, it's what the business has become now. And I'm happy to still be part of it in some ways. In other ways, I feel like I get pushed out, if you understand what I'm saying.
I get that.
So, because I can't do what these guys are doing, and I didn't realize how well known I was until I got myself out there traveling last year, and it was amazing. And, I'm not saying I'm a draw or anything like that, but I have people in the area that want to come and see me wrestle. But how are you going to expect old school wrestling fans in the area to come and see the younger guys, expose them to the younger guys, if you're not using the local veteran guys? You know what I mean?
I totally get that. And actually, one last thing I'll get to before we get into more of the independent stuff. You talked about, psychology a lot.
Yeah.
Now, the question I have for you is this. Do you feel like the art of psychology is lost now in pro wrestling?
It is because of companies, say, like AEW, Ring of Honor, a lot of the super indie talent, because they want action. They want spots. And listen, like I said, I mean, I'm not going to criticize anybody if I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I know what it takes. And I learned that if, you have a lot more respect for people you work with if you can't take your own move. I can't be at that level. I'm very slow. You take my time, but it's there, but it's very few of us understand it, I feel, as much as it should. Like I could give you an A to Z match of putting down, like, hey, this is how we're supposed to do this, how we're going to go into this, where, like I said, this is where I come in, and like I can't be a spectator because why are they doing that? Why is this one standing there? You shouldn't be doing it like that. But then again, when you try to give somebody advice, they kind of brush you off, like,
No, I
do their own thing anyway.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying. And from a fan's perspective, I'm in that same realm. And again, I think a lot of that is due to this podcast. Because like I'll sit there and I'll watch WWE or I'll watch AEW, or even like I go to some independent shows. And I go as a fan for the most part, but like I'll sit there and go, okay, the dots aren't connected for me. How do they go from there to there, but no in between? And mind you, this is coming from somebody who has never stepped foot in a wrestling ring.
Well, I mean, because like I said, the business has become more exposed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you didn't imagine trying to talk about, internet, imagine having social media during the 80s. I
Yeah.
mean, try to think about it that way. Like, that how quickly it would have gotten exposed. Nobody knows. But like, as much as sometimes people, shit on WWE, even for the longest time, everybody's ultimate goal is to make it to WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Even though wrestling is entertainment, that's where you're going to make more money being an entertainer. The wrestling is for the younger crowd. Entertainment is for the veterans, people that know how to work. Like, I'm not sitting here. I'm not the best worker. I'm not saying anything. Fans made me into who I am. I never called myself a legend. It started when my peers and kids that used to come to wrestling shows watching me, I am now wrestling, called me a legend. You know what I mean? But as you start, becoming maturing in the business, you start learning, and obviously you have to pay attention to your body. You start to see what works and what doesn't, and you just got to know the three parts of a wrestling match. And sometimes you don't need to do things. Sometimes that's my take on it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not saying that people don't know psychology, but it's an art that I'm still learning, but it's an art that comes with time.
No, I get what you're saying, but you talked about that you work with a lot of the younger talent and a lot of the future stars, and one of the people that you work with is Gemma.
Right.
How did you meet Gemma, and how has it been working with her?
I think you know her story, right? They've told you
Yes.
a little bit of her story. All right. The night that I met her was the night that it was her first night with PAPW. And I actually pulled into a parking lot. I was listening to music. I think I was listening to Black Label Society pretty loud. And Kyle was like, I don't remember exactly what he said. I think he knew who I was listening to. And he was like, hey, great song, or, whatever. And I just said hello. And next thing you know, we're in the back, and they I was in a, I don't know if I was in a tag or a 6-man, but Gemma was ringside with me. And from then on, like I went to her parents, and because I was talking to them earlier in the show, and I went back out there to let them know that she's going to be working with me. So, she will be safe. And then she'll be working with me tomorrow night, hopefully, pretty sure, at, PAPW and Fall Frenzy in East Haven. And it just kind of been mentoring her ever since. And become close with the family, and that's where I'm at this point in my life. I've gotten her a booking, I've gotten her other bookings, and I've gotten her in a place in Mass, and um, yeah, pretty much now it's like when she see me, she's associated with me.
And that, yeah, and no, I completely get, because a lot of times, because I'll see when Gemma's parents will post stuff about what she's doing, and nine times out of 10, it's usually a picture of Gemma, and then it's a picture of you.
Yeah. Yeah, you meet people in this business, and some some are fans, they become friends, and then they eventually become family. That's how it is. And we had an immediate connection. Me and Kyle were messaging yesterday about stuff, and our brains were both old school wrestling fans. And again, like, this is me, like, part of me is envious, where I wish I could do, part of me can't wait till the ride is over, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And the other part of me, a big part of me, wish I could do this forever. And people are like, "Oh, you could always teach or, train." And it's too, like, have a wrestling school. It's way too much stress and pressure.
Oh, I can
I'm
imagine.
a mentor.
I could imagine. But a couple more things I want to get to. Obviously, like I said, you've had a long story career. You've been in this industry now for 22 years. I'm assuming you've been both a good guy and a bad guy, correct?
Yes, I started off as a heel. I'm natural at both. Is I know what you're going to ask. Which one's my favorite?
Yeah.
Definitely a heel, because you could get away with a lot more. But, it's hard to be a heel now for me because of being, legend status, and, kind of having that following. However, I still can be a heel. Being a heel doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a total bad guy and a cheater. In that aspect, I could be a tweener where I'm very aggressive, like a tweener.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
When I turn it on, I'm just very aggressive.
I believe me, I've been told for years now, if I ever became a wrestler, I would be your white meat baby face, to the umph degree.
You remind me of Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah, that's a lot of people have said that I have, because and like I was saying before with Daniel Bryan, I've always had that underdog mentality.
Yeah.
And I've always had that mentality of, I've come from, a lot of stuff that I've gotten has been on my own for for 99% of it. And that's just all I'm going to keep doing. And so with me, I've always said if I ever became a wrestler, I would always push to be that baby face, because I would get over very quickly.
Well, it's okay to have an idea of what you want to do, but at the same time, once you start training, and you have to do what's natural,
Mm-hmm.
that comes to you, and that's how I got the name Bull Dredd. I my first. How did it come up? I was just working. We were just training, and I had started off. I think already had a couple matches, and my name was Mike Dredd, and I was just training one day, and, like, when you watch a lot of wrestling and you kind of mimic a lot of people, and, at the time, like I said, Stone Cold was top right there. So I mimicked a lot of him, and I just remembered like it was yesterday. I was just in the ring, just doing what I was doing, and Jason goes, "Bull Dredd, that's your name, Bull Dredd." That's how I got the name, because it just, whatever, I don't know how he said it. Like, anything that was in front of me, I just charged right through it. You know, it just I was very aggressive, just very. He nicknamed me what do you say, a firecracker one time. You know, it's just intensity. You got to people have to feel your intensity and your realism, and maybe I've lost a little bit of that. You know, but I've toned it down a lot. You know,
No,
just you save that energy. I've learned from Kurt Adonis, you know, and there's no need to start yelling at fans and talking, because you got to save that breath. You could tell a lot more. You could get a more of a reaction from fans with your intensity than and a growl and a look and and a snarl than just yelling at somebody. That's just
no, I've noticed it as well because, like I said, I go to a lot of the independent shows and I see a lot of the bad guy, the heels, who will start yelling at the crowd. I'm like, what are you? And again, I'm not sitting here saying, I'm a wrestler. I've never said, yes, have I stepped foot in a ring before? Yes, but that was to cut a promo, to do a promo segment, and then it was fun me trying to get out of the ring. But
right.
I'm far from being a wrestler, trust me. But I think watching wrestling enough and talk and becoming friendly with a lot of especially in the Northeast, I'm kind of looking at it much differently than a lot of fans do. And like, I'll sit there when you get, some of these heels who start, going at it with the audience and, start doing this. And I'm like, the audience is not in the match. The guy who's in the match is currently standing across the ring from you.
Yeah, you got to keep the fans in suspense.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give them everything at once. I mean, obviously they could distinguish who the bad guy is. You have to be able to distinguish who the baby face and the heel is by by the storytelling, and the moves and etc. Whatever. But the main goal is, and then you got to be able to enter. If you can entertain a non-wrestling crowd, you're doing something good. If you can entertain a wrestling crowd, make them believe, then you're over. Now what understand what this business is.
I completely agree. Now I know a lot of the shows you do are in the New England area, like the Connecticut, Massachusetts, that area.
Right.
Are there any promotions, even if it's in the Northeast or anywhere that you have? And if you want to include WWE and AEW, that's fine. But are there any promotions out there that you haven't worked in yet that you have your eye on to possibly work in before you wrap up your career?
I mean, I want to try. I want to go to Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I've been to New World Wrestling Extreme. He just actually Trooper messaged me today, asked me about tomorrow night, but I'm already booked. Invictus, I know, is out. There's another one up in the Albany area. TCW, I forget the name.
I know there's Dynasty.
There's Dynasty,
Immortal.
Immortal.
Uh,
There's another one.
think.
There's another one in Maine.
Oh, Limitless is in Maine.
Yeah, I mean, I say I want to travel and do all these, but then deep down inside, I'm like, part of me yes, and part of me no. Like I said, I'm at a time in my career now where it's like I'm happy wrestling once a month, just to stay active twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
But if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I've had my run. I've worked some of the biggest shows in New England, where Northeast Wrestling, and I've been in the ring, in the locker rooms with legends, and from Hogan to Piper to Flair to Warrior and Dusty, and and my biggest show that I did was when it was Cody Rhodes versus Kurt Angle, and it was over 4,000 people at Crosby High. And that's the night that I tagged up with Jerry Lawler. I put up the video, I think, the other day. And I've met pretty much all my childhood, heroes. And I posted a video today of me and Brian Anthony versus Tommy Dreamer and Ron Zombie with Mick Foley as a special referee. This was 13 years ago. And it's like the more and more that these memories are coming up, I'm like, damn, I really had a great career. Like, this is classic.
I mean,
I've been New Jack. by the original gangster. There's a video on YouTube, and I don't know, like, why am I still doing this? Like, I say that every time when my music's starting to play, and like I need to go pee, my heart's racing, and I say to myself, why do I still do this? Because I love it.
Hey, that's the best thing you can do. But like, at this point in your career, like I said, you've been doing this now for 22 years. When you still go out there and you're having these moments where you're across the ring from somebody like a Tommy Dreamer, you got Mick Foley in the ring as the special guest referee. Does a part of you still, as like the fans, still mark out a little bit, saying, "Holy crap, Tommy! I'm in the same ring as Tommy Dreamer"?
Yeah, it doesn't happen as much now, but last year I main evented versus Gangrel, and I was nervous as hell, and I lost a part of myself. I lost my concentration, and the fans said the match was good. Me, I know where I fucked up. I knew where I messed up, and that'll, it's in my head. And sometimes when you make a mistake, it kind of just it starts going downhill from there because you're concentrated on that mistake and not trying to get over that hump to continue. I got through the match, but like like I said, like you got the Brood music playing in the background, and I'm in the ring. I'm like, wow, this is actually happening. But there's one of my fondest memories was being in the Poughkeepsie in New York in the Mid Hudson Civic Center, and to me that's Madison Square Garden, and I wrestled there once. I've been in the building a few times, but here I'm in a little room with you're gonna be like, wow, okay, Terry Funk, Bret Hart, Tommy Dreamer, Jerry Lawler, remember Kozlov? He had just gotten released from WWE at the time, and me. I'm in the little tiny ass locker room with these 5 guys, and I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, I made it, and mind you, I've wrestled shows with Ric Flair, 2 nights, and one in Newburgh, one in Rockland. I actually was in the ring with his son, before he passed, Reed. And I'm working these matches, an 8-man tag and a 6-man tag, and here in the back you got Mick Foley, Ron Simmons, and Ric Flair watching your match. So these are the experiences I've had, and it's just it's like what I said in my post. Some people dream, some people are living it, and I've lived it.
Yeah, and I believe me, I completely can see that. Now I know you have 2 shows coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
We can talk about them for a little bit now before we get to the end. So, what are the 2 shows you have coming up this weekend, and where can fans get tickets for them?
Tickets tomorrow night is at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling in Coab in East Haven. Paul Roma, is owned by Paul Roma, Mario Mancini, and I originally wasn't on the show. Then I got text. I'm on the show. I got text. They had unfortunately take me off the show. Got text yesterday morning. Are you still available? We need you. I'm like, yep. I had nothing going on, so I'm able to post. I'm going to be there tomorrow night. Don't know exactly yet what I'm doing, but I'll be returning there. And Sunday morning, Wishes on Wheels for Planet Pro Wrestling in East Hartford, at Rentschler Field. A lot of the local guys will be there, and if you want to meet John Cena Sr., he'll be there. I met him last year, but I've done shows with him previously years ago. It was a fun time. It's a free event, and I'm just having fun now. I'm just no politics, no drama, and I just want to start kind of giving back to the business. And I actually text the promoter, Chris. I was like, listen, I'm going to make it easy for you. Sunday, give me one of your students. I want to be able to teach them something. And he goes, dude, I would love that. Thank you. So that's hopefully, I don't know who I'm working, but that's my plan for Sunday morning. Going to have a nice, easy day. Then I got to go to work Monday morning. So hopefully my body will be okay, But there's a question I know you wanted to ask me that you asked me.
Yeah, this is actually the last question I got. And I always ask this to everybody, and I want to get your take on this. I know, like I said, I know you've had a storied career. You've been in this for 22 years, and you've mentioned a plethora of legends who you've been either in the ring with or in the locker room with.
Right.
But at this point in your career, if you had the opportunity for one dream opponent, it doesn't matter what era, what generation, what promotion, if they were strictly indies or they were made it to WWE, who would it be?
Ric Flair. Like, honestly, it would have been a toss-up between Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. I would be Flair.
Ooh. I don't know. I when you said that, that was wow. I don't think I've ever heard anybody actually mention Ric Flair as one of their dream opponents.
Well, I mean, that was my era, you know.
Hmm.
Growing up, it was always who was better, Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan. I was a Flair man.
And no, and I completely can see that, because I know a lot of times I ask that, a lot of the responses I've gotten is, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, more guys from like the 90s. So it's nice to hear somebody mention somebody from, the 80s and 70s.
And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons why Arn Anderson also, because one of my fondest memories, listen, as a heel,
Mm-hmm.
you got to be able to have that, even though you're in the ring and you know what's going on, you know what's coming up or whatever, you got to have that, what the fuck was that type of expression for the fans to be able to relate. Like, you got to be able to act dumb. Like you just made a mistake and you can't believe that how dare you, to the baby face. And one of the things I finally remember about Arn Anderson is, I don't know what tag match it was. It was Lex Luger. I don't remember if he was tagging with Barry Windham or not, but it was Luger, Windham, let's just say, versus Tully and Arn. Now, and you're probably gonna go look for it. Now you're gonna understand why I'm saying Arn.
Mm-hmm.
And not only because he knows how to work, he makes you look good, but Luger comes in for a double clothesline and he hits Tully, but Arn Anderson ducks, right? What does he do to the fans? He goes like this, yeah, I outsmarted him. What do you think happens? He turns around, Luger clotheslines him. Things like that, like, kind of make, like, being a heel, that's how you have to be. And that's probably one of the reasons why I say Arn. But then again, with Flair, he's entertaining, and if you look at his work, it's not hard stuff. He's not going to kill you, but he's there to elevate you. Like, for instance, I'll go back to a show I did for PAPW about a month ago, or a couple months ago. I worked a kid that grew up watching me. His name is Fly Noriega. And Roma booked the match, and Fly came up to me and said, he wants us to go to distance. And I go, what does he want for a finish? And he goes, he left it up to me. Now, you leave it up to a veteran. My perspective is, why bury the talent? Like, I put something together where I put the kid over at the end. He pinned my shoulders, big deal. Me losing a match doesn't bring me down anything. I was there for me, I wanted to kind of bring him up to my level now. Him winning, putting the match on, so he goes over. He's able to say, I beat the New England hardcore legend last night. He put up a post. I know, it's like, go ahead. You know what I mean? But if people truly knew that it was up to me to do that, I did him the favor, and I didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
He winning a match didn't do anything. Winning matches, yeah, it's cool, whatever. At the end of the match, the fans cheered me because they know who I am. So everything comes full circle with that question.
And I completely, I totally understand where you're coming from. But Paul, I appreciate you coming on. Definitely want to have you on again.
That was awesome. I hope this is one of your best ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Paul, before we let you go, where can the fans connect with you on social media?
You can look me up on, I'm on Instagram at Dredd. I have Twitter at Bull Dredd also. I rarely use it, but you can look me up on Facebook. I'm under my real name, Michelangelo Kalo, or the Beast Bull Dredd, whatever you'll find. I'm sure once you tag me. People ask me all the time, what's the difference? I mean, Michael and Bull. Honestly, I am the gimmick, and the gimmick is me. It's an extension of who I am in real life. And if you see me work, I hope what you can sense from who I am is passion. And that's what the beat is.
I totally see that. I'm hoping one of these days, before your career does come to an end, I'm hoping I can actually see you in action.
Yeah, same. Thank you. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, guys, for Bull Dredd, I'm John. It's been Around the Ropes, YouTube exclusive. We'll catch you guys next time.
Wow, an hour.